We've got troubling news about Social Security. We've been covering this here on the show for a number of months about the decline of Social Security, the death of Social Security. But we have a new study out this morning which just goes to show you how quickly Social Security is actually going to run out of money. And I should couch it by saying Social Security doesn't have any money in the first place. Like, all Social Security is really IOUs that are written for future taxes being brought in, right? So there's not like a pile of this money really sitting there.
Well, you pay into it and the government sort of gambles with it while it's there. And then you hope that when you need it at the age of 65 or 70, whenever you begin to collect on it, that it's there for you.
Right.
That is quite a big gamble because new data shows that it may not be there after the year 2034. And retirees will only get about 78% of their full benefits starting now. So right now, any worker, anybody who's ever paid into Social Security on a paycheck or on their taxes should be able to go to ssa.gov and get an estimate of how much you will get at full retirement age, because you earn credits every year, and up to 4 credits. Once you've hit 40 credits, you are eligible for full Social Security benefits. And it is an estimate of what you have been earning throughout your productive working life, right?
Right.
So if you're the kind of person who doesn't report your earnings, then the Social Security Administration thinks you're a low earner, and then you will get less when you retire. So you should keep that in mind. If you're the kind of person who takes cash and does not report it, you actually are hurting yourself later in life if you get your full payout, right? But that estimate of what you are supposed to get when you're 65 or 70 or whenever you take it, because the earlier you take it, the less you get. If you wait until you're 70, you get the maximum amount. That may not actually pay out because that money may not be there.
Yeah. So according to the new the Social Security Trustees report, finds that in the year 2034, retirees will start receiving a reduced benefit if Congress doesn't fix funding issues for the social program. In other words, Social Security will exist after 2034, but barely. But retirees will only receive about 78% of their full benefits starting then.
So the United States right now is operating on a deficit. You know this. We have hit a debt limit, which will need to be raised in just a number of days now. And so if the United States continues to spend more than it takes in, then it's going to dip into our benefits. That has happened in recent years in modern Western governments. There's no reason to think it won't happen to us. So this retirement money that we're banking on, we really should not be, at least not to its full force. So when you get that statement, either monthly or annually, I keep an eye on both Clayton and our estimated Social Security earnings and what we would get based on our earnings right now.
Right.
We should be having that, not even halving it, just multiply it by 0.75, and maybe that is what you're going to get, maybe.
No major Social Security legislation has been passed since the early 1980s.
Well, it's so interesting, though, because the Treasury just released yesterday information that said that the U.S. government posted a $119 billion surplus in January for the first time in more than 2 years. So that means that for the month of January, they actually took in more than they spent. Most of the time that number is flipped. Now, why is that? Because a lot of the COVID relief expenditures ended in December. The president did make an effort, and the Democratic Party, to extend it, but it didn't happen. So this is sort of reminiscent of the Clinton era, where, Bill Clinton gets so much credit for balancing the budget, but you have to remember he was up against a brick wall. He couldn't pass anything that he wanted because he had he had opposition Congress, right? And so no one would pass anything he wanted. No money got spent, and the books got balanced. That at least is what happened.
Well, they also came together.
January.
Well, they also came together. I mean, Bill Clinton, when the first thing he did, I read Chairman Greenspan's autobiography a couple of years ago, and one of the things that Alan Greenspan said, who was a Republican, by the way, said that he was impressed with Bill Clinton before he became president, when he was president-elect. meeting with him, Alan Greenspan said, Bill Clinton said to him, what do we need to do in order to fix this economy? Because remember, the economy was in the crapper, right?
Yeah.
And he said, we need to balance this budget. This is not sustainable. And Bill Clinton said, okay, let's do it. And so they put together a framework, and Republicans and Democrats came together and passed it together, and they got it done in 1994.
Now, by many accounts, the lack of social spending hurt a lot of people, right? And there was a lot of uneven wealth equality in the 90s. That's easy
Right.
to say. But at the same time, 1 month with a budget surplus does not a healthy budget make, right?
But we saw an expansion of the middle class in the 1990s. This was probably the heyday of the middle class, like the last gasp of the middle class. The middle class was doing well.
Yeah.
And the middle class is now destroyed. Gone.
Well, so it's interesting then, right? So the U.S. Treasury can pat itself on the back for saying, oh, excellent, we had a budget surplus for the first time. People were paying their taxes. And we did not spend very much, but that's not what the party in office really wants right now. They want to spend more. They want to increase our debt. So this may not be a trend that we can bank on, especially if they're saying your Social Security may or may not be there.
Yeah. But I think it's absolutely true. We're going to see more inflation. We're going to see, again, we had this cost of living increase, right? We had this cost of living increase for Social Security.
Yes.
That's now with inflation running crazy and crazy hot. So this cost of living increase that we got for Social Security is virtually worthless. It's not keeping up with inflation. And the inflation data that we got yesterday is wrong anyway. We know that the real rate for inflation is much, much higher. So they very craftily changed the way that they report inflation data. So when we want to compare it to 1981 or 1982, like we're saying, oh, it's as equal to when it was in the early 1980s, 40 years ago. No, this is actually worse. This is actually worse. If we want to analyze it the way that we analyzed inflation data in the early 1980s, we changed the formula basically to hide the actual pain that we're seeing in the inflation data. So it's really only going to get worse.
Right. So, I mean, what can we do? You can keep an eye on your SSA.gov estimates. And you can think to yourself, wow, I better have a plan B, because if SSA is your plan A, it may not be there.
If you like this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, we have a membership program. For the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support independent journalism just by going to morninginvest.com/join.
You get access to exclusive videos, plus the ability to join and chat with us live. We really appreciate your subscription, and you are supporting independent journalism.